Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Body Conversations. I'm Jessie Lucas of Embodied Movement Training, and today we have Annmarie Cantrell, who is a healing foods chef and nourishment guide. And I have been following her for almost a year now and watching the level of conversation and the level of offerings that she has to bring to the table when it comes to talking about not just food, but nourishment from all levels. And what I love about what we're going to be talking about today is this sense of depth when it comes to nourishment. And I know from working in gyms and working in the fitness realm for so long, things that we do for our bodies, whether it's movement or whether it's eating, sometimes when we make quote unquote healthy decisions, we think we're making a really healthy decision, but it's not actually a nourishing one. And so I'm excited to kind of flip open this concept of nourishment and deep nourishment from whatever angles you want to bring, whatever wisdom you want to share. So Annmarie, I'm so excited you're going to share with us. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And I think what's so exciting is that you and I both share this core belief of the innate wisdom of the body, right? And so when we talk about nourishment, nourishment encompasses so much more than just food. It encompasses the movement work that you do. It encompasses our relationships. It encompasses our love and the joy in our lives and our environment. So it's really how do we put all of those pieces together to feel truly held in our space in this world when we're trying to go out and present ourselves. And I just so happen to work in the realm of food. And I love it because it's delicious and it's fun and it's exciting, but it's really information for the body. And, it is the core of what makes our cells tick, right? And so, like you were saying, so many people are so disconnected and we just think from here up. And, when we hear all of these things about like diets and I should do this, and it's the new year now, right? And people make all of these resolutions and it's like, well, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to try being paleo. I'm going to try doing keto. I'm going to be vegan. And it makes me so sad because when I work with people, a lot of the time people define themselves by the diets that they follow. And for me, diet is literally a four-letter word. And it's like, just get that out of your vocabulary. Stop thinking in those black and whites, like this good, this bad, because it goes so much deeper. And when we're so stuck in that tunnel vision, we lose this connection with the rest of our body and we're not listening. And I can say that I did that, right? I fell into that trap 25 years ago. I had gotten sick, and that's how I got into food because nothing else was working. So I wanted food to be my healer. And I was grasping at any straw that I could. And I got roped into doing macrobiotics for years. And even though I felt terrible, I listened to those counselors saying, well, you're eating too much protein. You don't need any more protein for the rest of your life, right? Meanwhile, I was eating, so many grains, I couldn't get rid of a yeast infection that I had perpetually for the last 5 years, right? I wasn't listening. And it wasn't until I saw some of the macrobiotic counselors that I was working with, like going outside and smoking. And I was like, what are you doing to your body? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, it turned on this light going, oh my gosh, Amber, you are the best person, to heal yourself. Stop listening to what other people have to say and really start listening to yourself. And that was a turning point for me. And that's, really what I started to do. And that deep listening takes practice. So when I work with people, it's just about, look, I don't care right now what you're eating, just eat it mindfully. Slow down and make sure that your environment is clear. Turn the computer off, turn the TV off, be present with your food and see how it really makes you feel. See if you can slow down and chew your food. I always tell people, I'm like, try chewing like 30 times. See if you can do it. See what happens. See how it's going to feel differently in your body. Just really become connected, and We don't, this culture, I don't think, values the slowness, and we certainly don't value the sacredness of meals and sharing meals in community. And, you look at what they do in Europe, and everybody closes down for the middle of the afternoon, and everybody leaves work and goes home to eat with their families and, get that afternoon siesta. There's something so different about the culture of food and how the body reacts. So that's really what I try to bring into the work that I do. And it's not about the food per se, it's about, how does it make you feel? And taking away those judgments of what it is that you're eating. Because another thing I'll always tell people is if you're so stuck on, you know, a particular diet, and your friends invite you out for dinner and you say, oh, I can't eat that. And you come with this anxiety and you're like, I'm not going to be able to eat. I can only have kale and fish. So I'm going to stay home and you guys go out. And you're eating your meal and that's not going to nourish you. Because you're feeling lonely, you're feeling isolated, you're feeling bad about yourself, you're missing your friends. So going out and enjoying a pizza and a beer, with some of your closest friends and laughing and telling stories, like that is going to open up those cells in your body, open up those receptors so that you become nourished. We're taking the mind out of the equation because the body is so powerful. Right? And so it picks up on all of our stress signals. And stress is one of the first things that's going to shut down our digestion.
Oh my goodness. You and I totally speak the same language here. One of the things I love that you said is that food is information. And I love how you kind of expanded that from not just, what the molecules or what the nutritional value of a particular food item is, but the information that comes with the experience of consuming the food, the slowness, the cultural influence, the social influence. I know I mostly have been a vegetarian since I was 9, and I believe everyone has a different constitution, everyone has different needs, and even everybody has different needs at different either times, chapters in their life, different seasons in the year. And I have felt that isolation. I have felt that disconnection. I can't tell you how many times I've left a restaurant crying because of that kind of expectation of wanting to share in something. Even I can remember as a kid going out with my family and feeling that, and I found ways to work around it. The other piece I found really interesting that you just said is this identity we put upon ourselves related to what we eat. So having been a vegetarian since I was 9, when I sailed through my first pregnancy when I was 22, 23, no problem. That kid actually who turns 20 this year still has never touched me. That's his constitution. Second kiddo when I was 28 years old, totally different story. That kiddo was down there going like, hey lady, I need some meat down here. Mm-hmm. And I'm up here going like, but I'm a vegetarian. And he's down there going, but I'm not. And it was such an interesting thing. And I really have my own body awareness to thank for this, that it was clear to me that while it might not have been my cells, my body that needed that particular kind of nourishment, his did. And at that point, his nourishment relied on me. And I remember having almost an identity crisis. Like it took me a good couple of weeks to listen, not only to my own body, but to this other body telling me, literally sending me the messages, what nourishment. And it was so hard for me to disconnect my identity as a vegetarian with this decision, oh my gosh, I might need to put some meat in my mouth. And I did. I remember it was around Thanksgiving time and there was leftover turkey. I think it might have been the first Thanksgiving, I even had turkey cooked in my house. And I remember sneaking out of bed in the middle of the night, opening the fridge and crouching down, little pregnant lady crouching down by the open fridge by myself in the middle of the night and pulling this piece of turkey and looking at it. And you're like, okay, here we go. And put it in my mouth. And as soon as I did, there was this connection. There was this moment of whole body gratitude of thank you. And it really, I think that was one of the most profound senses of nourishment I have ever felt, loud and clear. It could not ignore it. And it was interesting. Just to kind of sum up that story, I did keep eating meat until I was done breastfeeding him. And then as soon as his body wasn't relying on mine anymore, my body was like, okay, that's done. You don't need that nourishment. He did. You don't. It's okay now. And I did eat meat for a little while longer because I was afraid to lose that level of nourishment for myself. But eventually it was okay. And I mean, to this day, that kid still wakes up like he'll ask for all the meats all day. So it's interesting to see not only are different elements of nourishment different for all of us and different at different times in life, but I love how you brought up that identity, because when we're not culturally supported to slow down, to really listen, we rely on these things. I know I did. I hung on to that identity. So what advice do you have if somebody's struggling with listening to what nourishment is, maybe making a decision that's outside of the rules they've created for themselves or that they believe is right based on whatever resources, to kind of start experimenting or be gentle enough with themselves to start inquiring, to start listening, to start making decisions? What do you have to
Yeah.
give for us?
Yeah. First of all, I love that story so much. That is such a beautiful example of that deep nourishment and that deep listening without judgment, right? Because I feel like that's where we all stand. We judge ourselves, we judge our bodies, we judge, I look a certain way, I need to eat a certain way so I can get rid of this and I can tone to this. And it's really, we're so judgy. And then we judge other people based on what they're eating because we feel this little superiority complex sometimes, right? And so it's about taking away that judgment. So for someone who really wants to sit and deeply listen, it's just doing that, right? It's just taking that judgment off, taking that shame off, and just sitting and understanding. And I usually start with exercises with people, and so we can do a little one. And for me, it's like just close your eyes and think about like your first food experience that just brought you so much joy. And you're probably going to be conjuring up a visual image. You might be conjuring up a smell. You might be conjuring up a taste. Your salivary glands might be getting activated. Mine are just by the thought. So digestion doesn't begin in the mouth. Digestion actually begins in the brain with the thought of food. And so it's going through those steps. And for me, there's a couple of things that come up, right? But for me, the thing that just hit me now was when I was 8 years old, my grandparents moved to We grew up in Brooklyn, and my grandparents, we saw them every weekend. They moved to San Diego to be with my uncle. So then I would only get to see them once a year in the summertime. And it was such a special time. And I remember sitting around the table with my grandmother, and she cut me a piece of Entenmann's coffee cake and gave me a cup of coffee at 8 years old. And it was like I cherish that because I felt like such a grown up with my grandmother, and she looked at me so differently. We would have these conversations. And so I can still taste that crumb cake, but it's those feelings that are conjured up. So that's how we want to feel when we nourish ourselves. We want those feelings that are going to bring up joy and pleasure. It's not about eating the stale cardboard. It's not about, the kale smoothies that we can't get down. It's about pleasure as well. So working with those emotions and then understanding that okay, maybe the Entenmann's coffee cake isn't going to be the most nourishing thing nutrient wise at this point. So, what are substitutions that we can put in there? I'll teach you how to make a coffee cake, and we'll soak the flour so that, it doesn't upset your gut and the flour is really more digestible. We'll reuse a really good grade, organic sugar like a coconut sugar or a maple sugar or a date sugar, and we'll just play. And you can certainly have that pleasure, and if you're doing it at home, it's something that you can do for yourself to really create things that are really going to nourish yourself. And then, of course, there's that 80-20 rule, and you're on the road and you're, driving for 5 hours and you pass, a gas station and you want to run in there and grab a piece of, an Entenmann's coffee cake while you're on the road, okay, right, do that, right? As long as you can do it without judgment. And then know when you get back home, you're going to fill that void and that space with things that are more nourishing, but it doesn't need to be, like very sparse and not fulfilling. Does that make sense?
That feels like such relief. Honestly, not only does it make sense, like I even just hearing you describe it that way, like I feel relief in my body, and just having the freedom to know it's almost like giving the freedom to go ahead and stop at that gas station also gives you the freedom to explore what is more, nourishing on that, nutrient level as well. Because, it's like, I believe anything, when you open up one end of the spectrum, you also open up the other. When you close one end of the spectrum, you also close up the other. And it just, the way you just described that, it felt like it opened up the whole spectrum, which to me, like if you're open, you can receive that nourishment. That's so beautiful. I want to keep this kind of digestible for our listeners. So we're going to wrap it up here. We will include Anmarie's information in the notes with the video. But Annmarie, now people are salivating, they want more. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so the business that I run is called Cucina Verde, which is Cucina, capital Verde, and my website is cucina-verde.com. I'm on Facebook like that too, and I just put a bunch of information on about nourishing out there, and I run a lot of programs, and we're doing lots of Zoom calls about deep nourishment and gut health and all the things that go in the middle.
You're in Pennsylvania, is
So
that
I'm in
right?
Pennsylvania,
You're in
just
Pennsylvania. So if you
Philadelphia.
are, look her up near Philly and go get her sauerkraut if
Oh
you're
yes,
in.
thank you.
One of these days when we're a little more free to move about the country, I'm north of Albany, New York, but I travel down to the Mid-Atlantic all the time. So when I come down 95, I'm going to hop off and come get your
Come visit,
sauerkraut.
please.
So, Annmarie, thank you so much for sharing all of your nourishing wisdom with us today. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you know anything about my work, it is all about nourishment of the movement of your body. And like Annmarie said, food is data. I believe movement is data, is information for your body. So if you are interested in learning how to decode that data, the sensory information from movement, that's what I do in Embodied Movement. You can find me at embodiedmovementtraining.com. Enjoy the next episode. Thank you. Thank you, Annmarie.
Thanks, Jesse. Take care.